With me today is the author of Passing Through, David Penhale, who has written a wonderful story on David Foster. So tell us, what happened to the character David Foster in your book?
Daniel Foster, actually.
I'm sorry, Daniel.
That's okay. Well, John Lennon famously said that life is what happens while we're making other plans, and that's pretty much what happens to him. He's lived in the Middle East for about 25 years, made a lot of money, really enjoyed himself. He's off in retirement. He'd make a quick stop in Toronto and fix his daughter's life and maybe meet his granddaughter that he's never met. And while he's here, there's a bank failure, and all his money suddenly disappears in a poof of smoke, and he finds himself coping with a culture on fast forward that's totally foreign to him, and family he doesn't know, and he's sort of kind of starting over.
Well, excuse me, he grew up in Toronto, right? The character
Yes.
grew up in Toronto, and then went to the Middle East, made the money, like you said. When he came back, his daughter was in trouble, and he was here to help her. What was the inspiration for the book completely? Like, what was your inspiration to write this book?
I lived in Dubai in the 1990s, and when I came back, I found all the culture shock was on this end.
Interesting.
Yeah, you think it's going to be there, but that was easy. It was everything was new and adventurous. And you come back, and sort of the streets are all too straight, and everything is sort of off kilter. It takes a while to get the rhythm again, and just kind of, I guess, to fall in love with the place that you live, which is what you have to do if you're going to live someplace.
Now, I've been to Dubai, and it's a very, very different culture. And coming to Toronto, like Toronto is, what's so different about Toronto? And what was it why was it struggling for? Why did you have the struggle to get to know Toronto again? What specifically?
Well, again, when you've lived in a place like Dubai, especially, which is so completely different, coming back here. Getting the rhythm of everything and such a changed world. The epigraph for the book is from Rip Van Winkle, which is kind of what he feels like. He's woken up in a world that he doesn't recognize, and he has to make his way. It's very hard in Canada to say good things about the city of Toronto. It's sort of the thing that very very hard to do, but. He really does fall in love with the city again, and I have to say myself, when I came back, the city was very good to me. There was something about walking along Dundas in West Toronto Junction, the look of the buildings, the rhythm of the weather, the way people talk to you. The city kind of welcomed me back in its own kind of...
In its own way.
Yeah.
You also dedicate your book to your father. And says that he's at the center of this story. Why is that?
Well, I think one of the things that the book is about is that at some point we have to come to terms with our own myths, which are the deep stories that we live by. And in the book, he comes to this culture which is full of these ready-made myths that want to get pushed on him. He ends up in this big box hardware store called Grandpa's Toolbox, where there are these model grandpas dressed in denim overalls. But for me, it was the story of my father, and I borrowed a lot from my own father, although his life story is quite different. But there's that sense of who that man was and how he saw the world that Foster has to come to terms with, as he does slowly through the book, along with a lot of other things about his history.
Now, in the book, you also say that he had to or suggest that he had to relearn how to love and be loved as well. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, he was divorced years ago, before he left Canada, and he's sort of you can think of the Middle East, certainly Dubai, which is to the Middle East what Hong Kong used to be to the Far East. It's the portal and sort of a big hotel room in a way. The United Arab Emirates are 80% expatriate.
Right.
And it's sort of timeless. You sort of described as a fountain of youth at one point, and he finds himself dealing with that kind of world, and then figuring out where he is in terms of his own heart. Again, there's people coming and going. He has affairs. Among other things that happen to him is that he falls in love with somebody. In fact, shouldn't give things away, but he's too dumb to know it, as men probably are usually. Because I do believe that we fall in love and then figure it out.
After. When it's late.
You know, those orangutans you were talking about might be smarter, but for us, we have to kind of process it. So that's one of the ongoing things, is how he comes to terms with. Oddly, he finds that love is as much about receiving and taking in as it is giving, because he thought as long as he could provide and give, then he was obviously a loving man.
And we all know that actually love is give and take, right? There's a great critique of the book that says, by Sean Terry, who says, Penhale takes his readers on a journey through the Arabian Desert, the neighborhoods of Toronto, and the main streets of small-town Ontario. A pilgrimage of this rediscovery and adaptation that challenges us to re-examine our surroundings, our idea of comfort, and ourselves. Is that the journey you want the reader to be taken on?
Yeah, among others, yes, that's a good point. There's a physical journey. One thing that like Foster, one of Foster's experiences that I share is falling in love with the desert. The desert is beautiful. Anybody who goes to the Emirates comes away with a souvenir, the seven sands, these lovely colors from a kind of a beige to a deep blood red, and just with the wind whipping off the top of the dunes. And you fall in love with that, and then he comes back and has to kind of fall in love again with his own country.
With Toronto.
And find out about it.
Well, I got to say, I fell in love with the book.
Oh, lovely.
So thank you very much. For more information, go to davidpenhale.com. When we come back, Val's in the kitchen cooking with mucho burrito. It's great, great book.